When your enemies realized they couldn't touch your success, they went for your name. That's how it always starts, never with courage, but with whispers. Someone saw your calm as a threat and your peace as something too expensive to exist freely. So they sent someone to dig, to investigate who you really are, thinking they'd finally uncover something scandalous. But what they didn't anticipate was that every person who truly knew you buried the rumors instead of feeding them. The moment the questions began, the gossip died, because when lies collide with the receipts of integrity, they shatter. When you live right, even investigations turn into testimonies. The same people they tried to use against you ended up defending you. The stories they twisted snapped back into truth. Facts don't bow to jealousy, and your truth didn't flinch under the flashlight. They thought they'd catch you slipping, but all they saw was their own reflection in the mirror of your strength. You can almost hear their frustration now, the sound of disappointment from people who prayed for your downfall but had to watch your upgrade instead. Chosen one, take a breath. That energy you're feeling isn't just relief, it's vindication. You stood firm while the universe flipped the script. What happened wasn't random. It was exposure season. They mistook your silence for weakness, not realizing that silence is how the universe builds suspense before the reveal. You've been walking into rooms lately where smiles don't match the eyes, where conversations begin the moment you leave. That's because your presence lingers. Your energy leaves evidence of power without you having to speak. When that so-called investigator showed up asking questions, your reputation answered for you. They expected chaos and found composure. They expected drama and met discipline. One coworker said, "They always stay calm under pressure." Another added, "If anything, they've helped more people than they'll ever admit." Imagine the silence when the report came back, not just clean, but glowing. They didn't find dirt, they found gold. And that's where envy starts to burn, because those who hated you wanted proof that you were fake, but ended up finding you were more real than they could ever be. Their jealousy isn't emotional anymore, it's physical. You can see it in how they avoid eye contact, how their voices drop when your name comes up. You've become their uncomfortable truth, the reminder that good still wins and authenticity still survives the smear. Understand this. They don't hate you for what you did. They hate you for what you didn't do. You didn't break. You didn't hand them your peace. You didn't feed their rumor mill. And when the truth came out, it didn't just clear your name, it stamped your legacy. They thought they were exposing you, but the universe exposed them. It's wild how predictable betrayal becomes once you start living on a higher level. The same patterns always return: the smear campaign, the fake concern, the silent observers. But now you see through it. You've seen this movie before, and you know how it ends. The truth always comes back wearing your face. The people who studied you became your unpaid promoters. Even history repeats this pattern. Legends were mocked before they were memorialized. Innovators were doubted before they were quoted. You, chosen one, belong to that same lineage of misunderstood greatness. You're not being investigated, you're being documented. Here's the revelation. They didn't realize the universe was taking notes too. Every lie they spoke turned into proof of your patience. Every doubt they spread became evidence in your favor. You weren't being tested, you were being recorded for your next victory. The universe watched the gossip, the rumors, the humiliation, and said, "Perfect, now, let's flip it." And it did. Because now your name doesn't just live in conversations, it lives in respect. People are realizing that the calmest person in the room was the most dangerous all along. And for those who sent the investigator, let's just say they dug their own hole thinking it was yours. They didn't destroy you, they made you unforgettable. This is your vindication season, chosen one. Every whisper meant to harm you became proof of your truth. You didn't have to fight, explain, or defend. Your reputation did that for you. The same people who tried to bury your name can't stop speaking it now. And you, yes, you, the one whose name they tried to twist but couldn't touch, are about to witness how their little investigation backfired so beautifully it turned into your applause. The universe was defending your name the whole time. So stay right here, chosen one, because this isn't just about survival, it's about elevation. If you've ever been lied on, envied, or doubted, this story is yours. They went digging for dirt and struck gold instead. You can't expose someone who has nothing to hide. You can only expose your own obsession with seeing them fall. They thought your name was a ticking bomb, but the only explosion was their embarrassment when the dirt turned out to be roots, deep, strong, and unshakable. They sent someone to find your flaws, and he came back with evidence of your excellence. They didn't want truth, they wanted control. But how do you destroy someone whose strength is authenticity? How do you ruin someone whose silence is their defense? Every question they asked about you came back with the same answer: solid, grounded, respected. Their plan didn't just fail, it flipped. They handed you a background check and you turned it into a background blessing. They wanted to expose a fraud and instead revealed their own projection. Because envy never hates you for your wrongs, it hates you for your rights. You didn't crumble when life tried to humiliate you. You didn't panic when they whispered. Your peace was louder than their gossip. You don't have skeletons. You have standards. And that's why they can't stand you. You're a living contradiction to their lies. They told the world you were fake, but the world keeps confirming you're the truth. Because clean living and consistency are the real power moves in a world addicted to chaos. People who lose control of their own story will always try to rewrite yours. You remind them of what they could have been if they hadn't sold out their values. Your glow exposes their emptiness. Every attempt to bury you only helped your name grow stronger. They planted rumors. You grew proof. They watered lies. You bloomed receipts. And now the same people who called you too good to be true are realizing you were just too true to be broken. Because here's the truth. People can't destroy what they can't define. And they'll never understand your calm because they keep mistaking quiet for weakness. They never understood your boundaries because they mistook distance for guilt. But you're not hiding, you're healing. You're not silent because you're scared. You're silent because you've already won. They wanted to see you unravel, but you're the one holding the thread. You walked right through their trap without ever stepping on it. Because, let's be honest, this so-called investigation was never about truth. It was about fantasy. They wanted your image to match the lies living raunchy in their heads. But when the investigator came back with facts instead of fiction, it broke them. They couldn't even pretend they were right anymore. You became living proof that the universe protects those who walk in truth. And truth doesn't argue, it reveals. Your reputation didn't need defending. It just needed time. The longer they talked, the more their words exposed them, not you. Every false rumor they spun became a thread that unraveled their own credibility. You stood still while they destroyed their own peace trying to chase yours. That's poetic justice. Because while they were waiting for your name to collapse, it climbed. You're being mentioned in rooms that matter, while their names fade behind closed doors. They wanted a scandal. They got a standing ovation. They were praying for dirt and found only gold. Remember this, chosen one. You never owe an explanation to people addicted to confusion. The truth doesn't panic under pressure. It stands taller. You're living proof that no investigation can erase integrity built over years of quiet loyalty and consistency. They tried to put your name on trial, but it ended up being printed in headlines of admiration. They tried to ruin your reputation and instead made it undeniable. They wanted to feed off your downfall and ended up choking on your elevation. That's what clean living does. It turns gossip into gospel, lies into lessons, and enemies into unpaid marketers of your greatness. Let them keep talking. Every time they say your name, it shines brighter. You don't need revenge. You are the revenge. Their disappointment is your justice. Their obsession is your trophy. You didn't lift a finger. The universe did the cleanup. That's what burns them most. You didn't just pass their test. You were never even taking it. Now let's talk about number 2. The streets testified while their lies fell flat. When truth and lies walk the same path, only one leaves lasting footprints. They thought the streets would turn against you, that whispers would become headlines. But when the air cleared and truth started walking, its voice was louder than all their secrets combined. Because when you've lived right, when you've treated people well and moved with quiet grace instead of hidden chaos, your reputation builds its own defense system. You don't have to beg anyone to speak up for you, the streets do it naturally. And that's exactly what burned them. Imagine them sitting in a circle, convinced their rumor had spread, smirking, waiting to hear that your name was ruined. Then the investigator started asking around, and every person he spoke to said the same thing. No, they're solid, always calm, never cause drama, always handle things the right way. Every response was another nail in the coffin of their lies. Their story didn't even make it to trial. It died in the whispers that birthed it, because reputation may be built in silence, but it's proven in echoes. You didn't have to clear your name. Your character already did. The universe doesn't let false energy reign for long. It flips it. The same streets they thought would drag your name through the mud ended up polishing it like glass. They underestimated how many people had quietly witnessed your goodness, your patience, your consistency. Real people don't always speak up, but when truth is on trial, they testify. Your enemies put their faith in the crowd, thinking numbers could drown out integrity. But the world's changed. People can feel what's real. They've watched you show up, stay calm, do the work, and carry your dignity like armor. So when lies tried to take your place, your presence stood taller. You didn't have to campaign for validation. Your integrity did that for you. You've built silent allies without even knowing it. People who respect how you move. People who remember your restraint when others would have snapped. That's what saved you. Imagine one of your enemies refreshing their phone, waiting for bad news, only to hear glowing reports instead. Actually, they're one of the calmest, most real people I've met. You can almost see their confidence deflate, because their fantasy needed followers. But all they found were witnesses of your truth. They can't handle that the same streets they poisoned with gossip now echo your name and respect. That's justice in its purest form. When deception collapses under the weight of authenticity, there's no narrative left to twist. People didn't just remember your face, they remembered your energy, your kindness, your composure, your unshakable balance. That built your defense long before anyone tried to attack you. And here's the irony. They always knew this would happen. Deep down, they knew that if anyone ever checked, your record would come back spotless. But envy doesn't care about facts. It feeds on fantasy. They needed to feel powerful again, and your downfall was their drug. But gossip is a weak weapon. It backfires faster than it hits. The same mouths that cursed you are now choking on your name as truth reclaims its crown. The people they tried to recruit against you didn't fold. Those who actually knew you, your co-workers, your neighbors, your community. They spoke the truth. And that truth hit harder than any defense you could have crafted. Yes, betrayal still stings, even when truth wins. But understand this, the universe never lets false accusations fade quietly. It makes them backfire publicly. That's why some people are suddenly avoiding your eyes, changing their tone, or pretending they never believed the lies. They're embarrassed because the story collapsed and you're still standing. Now imagine walking through those same streets that once whispered against you and hearing those whispers turn into quiet respect. People you never thought noticed now say, "Hey, I heard good things about you." That's not coincidence. That's karma, in motion. Truth doesn't need a megaphone. It moves quietly but lands loudly. And right now it's landing one conversation at a time, proving that your consistency was the real headline all along. This is the quiet power of clean living. It doesn't scream for attention, but when attention finally comes, it glows. You've become the living contradiction to their lies. The same streets they thought would destroy you are now your audience. The same mouth that mocked you now mimic your discipline. That's poetic justice in motion. They tried to rewrite your image, but your reality refused to change the script. That's the thing about integrity. It anchors you while their fiction collapses under its own weight. Every attempt to frame you only sharpened the contrast, your calm against their chaos, your truth against their delusion, your dignity against their desperation. The louder they lie, the louder your silence testifies. That's what infuriates them. Because no matter what stories they spin, they're always overshadowed by the proof of who you really are. They can't rewrite what too many people have already witnessed. The streets didn't just reject their lies, they reversed the narrative entirely. Now your name circulates as a lesson in endurance, not as a target of gossip. And that, chosen one, is your victory. You didn't argue, you didn't expose them. You let the truth step into the spotlight, and it performed perfectly. Every lie now points back to its author. Every rumor now exposes the envy that birthed it. You didn't need revenge, you just needed patience. When you walk in truth, the universe becomes your PR team. You didn't chase rumors, you replaced them with results. You didn't beg to be understood, you simply kept evolving until the world had to catch up. Now the same streets that once doubted you echo your name with respect, and those who started it all hide in the shadows of their own noise. So stand tall, chosen one. Let them stew in silence. The streets have already spoken, and they speak the language of truth. Your story isn't just vindicated, it's legendary. The investigator might have asked questions, but the world answered for you. You were never the problem, you were the proof. Number 3. When even the ones who didn't like you tell the truth, you've already won the loudest war. They were certain silence would finally turn on you. They thought, let's ask the quiet ones, the ones who barely talk, the ones who might have hidden resentment. That was their plan. If they couldn't twist your friends, they'd try to flip the bystanders. But what they didn't expect was that even your quiet critics couldn't find dirt. That's when panic started. Because how do you destroy someone whose consistency even strangers can confirm? Picture this. The investigator calls a sea orker who barely spoke to you, someone they assumed would give a cold response. Instead, that same person says, they were always professional, never disrespectful, just focused on their work. Silence. Shock. Because the ones who expected dirt got documentation of discipline instead. Your character leaves fingerprints in rooms you've never stepped into. You didn't have to campaign for respect. You earned it through your conduct. Every time you stayed calm instead of clapping back. Every time you chose peace over pride. You built a reputation that even your quiet observers couldn't deny. That's why they're angry now. Because even those who didn't like you won't lie about you. That's a level of integrity they'll never reach. And yes, maybe some people misunderstood your calm, mistaking it for arrogance. But dislike isn't dishonor. They might not vibe with your energy, but even they admit you never crossed the line. That's the difference between enemies and haters. Enemies attack you, haters envy your peace, but both eventually acknowledge you never gave them a reason to disrespect you. Imagine an old acquaintance, maybe even an ex-friend, being asked, "What was your experience with them?" And all they can say is, "We don't talk anymore, but they were always respectful." That one sentence carries more truth than 1,000 rumors, because truth doesn't shout. It just stands firm. You can't twist the words of those who've only seen your grace. Their smear campaign collapsed because it was built on assumption, not evidence. They thought someone, anyone, would validate their fantasy, but all they got was neutral honesty that leaned in your favor. I don't know them well, but I've never seen them act fake. That's what destroyed their fiction. You didn't need everyone to love you. You just needed to live right. And you did. Your energy wrote its own testimony. It didn't need hype. It didn't need applause. It just existed as undeniable truth. Even the quiet ones spoke well of you, and that's what made your enemies choke on their disappointment. They expected whispers of chaos, but they got confirmation of composure. They thought your absence meant guilt, but it meant peace. You never pretended to be flawless. You were just real. You made mistakes, but never hid behind deceit. You owned your path, stayed grounded, stayed respectful. That's why your name is Unshakable. You're not spotless, you're transparent, and that terrifies them more than perfection ever could. Now they sit there frustrated, replaying conversations, realizing they've run out of ammunition. The quiet witnesses they relied on turned out to be witnesses of your integrity. Even those who never liked you had to admit you're solid, and that crushed them. So remember this, chosen one. Silence is not weakness. It's your truth, standing undefeated. They tried to drag you through the mud, but all they did was polish your name. When even the quiet ones confirm your character, that's not luck. That's legacy. Number 4. The report didn't break them. The reflection did. You can't hate the truth without hating the part of yourself it exposes. They were convinced this investigation would finally shatter you. They imagined your image cracking, your reputation collapsing. But the light they aimed at you turned into a mirror, and it showed them their own flaws. The end.